crossed paths, Julian Mercer adjusted his custom-tailored suit as his driver pulled up to the Metropolitan Museum's grand entrance. At 38, the founder and CEO of Nexus Innovations had mastered the art of making appearances without truly being present. Tonight's Arts Foundation benefit was just another obligation his PR team had insisted upon. 1 hour, he muttered to his assistant, Dominic, who walked beside him. Then we leave. 2 hours minimum, Dominic countered, unfazed by his boss's scowl. And you need to speak with at least 3 board members. Your reputation as Silicon Valley's Ice King isn't helping investor relations. Julian's jaw tightened. He hated these events, the shallow conversations, the performance of it all. Success had brought him everything except what mattered. 8 years building Nexus into a tech giant worth billions, and he'd never felt more alone. The Grand Hall buzzed with New York's elite in designer evening wear, champagne flutes catching the light from crystal chandeliers. Julian nodded at acquaintances, exchanged pleasantries with investors, all while scanning for the quickest exit route. That's when he saw her. Unlike everyone else working to be seen, she was perched on a bench near the Egyptian wing, seemingly oblivious to the gala. Dark hair fell in waves around her shoulders as she focused intently on a sketchpad. While others networked, she created. "Who is that?" Julian asked, interrupting a venture capitalist mid-sentence. Dominic followed his gaze. "No idea. Definitely not on our priority list." Something about her stillness amid the chaos drew Julian forward. He approached quietly, watching as her pencil moved confidently across the page, capturing the hall's vaulted architecture with remarkable precision. "That's impressive," he said, startling her. When she looked up, Julian felt an unexpected jolt. Her eyes were deep brown and remarkably direct. No recognition, no immediate calculation of his net worth, just mild annoyance at the interruption. "Thank you," she replied, closing her sketchbook slightly. "Though most people start with hello." Julian found himself smiling, a genuine one, not the practiced version he used for business. "Hello, I'm Julian." "Sophia," she offered without extending her hand. "Just Sophia for tonight." "You don't want to be here either," he observed. "My firm donated a design package to the auction." Attendance was strongly encouraged. She studied him with unsettling perception. "You look exhausted." Not physically, something deeper. Her candor caught him off guard. People didn't speak to Julian Mercer this way. They wanted something from him. Funding, connections, validation. Her directness was disarming. "Most people are too intimidated to tell me I look terrible." "I didn't say terrible," I said, tired. "There's a difference." She tucked her pencil behind her ear. "What are you running from or toward that's wearing you down like that?" For a moment, Julian considered giving her a real answer. Before he could, a young woman approached, eyeing Julian nervously. "Sophia, there you are. Mr. Harrington is asking about the Williamsburg project. He's considering doubling his contribution." Sophia sighed, reluctantly standing. "Duty calls. The price of free admission." She hesitated, then added, "Whatever it is, slow down occasionally. Buildings that go up too quickly rarely stand the test of time." She walked away before Julian could respond, disappearing into the crowd. He realized he hadn't even gotten her last name. "Sir?" Dominic appeared at his side. "The mayor is waiting to speak with you." Julian nodded absently, his eyes still searching the room for the woman with the sketchbook who'd seen right through him in minutes. "Find out who she is," he said quietly. "The architect." Dominic raised an eyebrow but made a note. "Of course." "Now, about the mayor." Julian straightened his tie and turned away, but his mind remained fixed on Sophia and her unexpected question that had struck uncomfortably close to home. Professional collision? Julian drummed his fingers against the sleek conference table as Henderson, his project director, explained the delays on the Riverview Tower renovation. "The Historical Preservation Board rejected our third proposal," Henderson said. "They're insisting we work with a preservation specialist who understands the building's architectural significance." "Frankly, sir, we need someone who speaks their language." Julian's patience was wearing thin. The 100-year-old Riverview building in Brooklyn Heights was meant to be Nexus's flagship East Coast headquarters, a symbol of how his company could honor the past while building the future. Instead, it had become a bureaucratic nightmare. "Who do they recommend?" Julian asked. "Veritas Design. Small firm, but they've got an impeccable reputation for historical renovations. They've assigned their lead architect to meet with us today." The conference room door opened, and Julian's world tilted on its axis. Sophia. She wore a tailored charcoal suit, hair pulled back in a professional knot, portfolio tucked under her arm. The woman from the museum. Their eyes met, and for a fraction of a second, surprise flickered across her face before her expression settled into cool professionalism. "Mr. Mercer," she said, extending her hand. "Sophia Vega, Veritas Design. I believe we met briefly at the Arts Foundation benefit." Her handshake was firm, her gaze direct, no hint of the warmth they'd shared that night. "Ms. Vega," Julian replied, maintaining his composure despite the unexpected acceleration of his pulse. "A coincidence?" "New York is smaller than people think," she answered, her tone revealing nothing as she set up her presentation. For the next hour, Sophia commanded the room, displaying an expertise that impressed even Julian's skeptical team. She walked them through detailed renderings of how the Riverview's Art Deco elements could be preserved while accommodating modern technology needs. Her passion for the building was evident in every word. "This isn't just another historical structure," she explained, pulling up original blueprints. "The Riverview was revolutionary for its time. These curved windows, the integrated light wells, they were engineering feats in 1924. To demolish them would be architectural sacrilege. And expensive," added Henderson. "The Preservation Board—" "This isn't about appeasing a board," Sophia interrupted. "It's about respecting the building's soul while giving it new purpose." Julian watched her, fascinated by the transformation from the quiet woman sketching in a corner to this passionate advocate. "What's your timeline?" he asked. 6 additional months minimum." The room erupted in protests. Julian silenced them with a raised hand. "Unacceptable," he said. "We've already lost 3 months to regulatory hurdles." Sophia met his gaze without flinching. "Rush this, and you'll either destroy something irreplaceable or face lawsuits that will delay you years, not months." The tension between them crackled across the conference room. Julian's team shifted uncomfortably, unused to seeing their CEO challenged so directly. "Ms. Vega," Julian said finally, "I'd like to see the site with you. Tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Just the two of us." Surprise flickered in her eyes, but she nodded. "I'll bring the original plans." After the meeting, Dominic handed Julian a folder. "The information you requested on Ms. Vega. Graduated top of her class from Columbia Architecture. Turned down positions at prestigious firms to work at Veritas. Known for being brilliant but difficult, she's walked away from lucrative projects when clients wouldn't respect historical integrity." Julian closed the folder without looking at it. "Clear my schedule tomorrow morning." "Sir, you have the investor call." "Move it," Julian said, watching Sophia gather her materials. Something about her bothered him, a familiarity he couldn't place. More than that, he couldn't reconcile the woman from the gala with this architectural crusader who seemed determined to challenge him at every turn. The next morning, fog embraced the Riverview building as Julian arrived. Sophia was already there, her breath visible in the early autumn chill. Without heels, he realized she was shorter than he'd remembered, the top of her head reaching just above his shoulder. "The building deserves better than becoming just another tech headquarters," she said by way of greeting. "You don't think much of me or my company," Julian observed. "I think you're a man used to bending the world to your timeline." She unlocked the building's massive doors. Some things shouldn't be rushed. Inside, the grand lobby remained a shadow of its former glory. Sophia moved through the space with reverence, trailing her fingers along marble walls dulled by decades of neglect. "Look up," she instructed. Julian tilted his head back. Above them, a damaged but still magnificent mosaic ceiling depicted the night sky, tiny gold tiles creating constellations across a deep blue background. "Your demolition plan would have destroyed this," she said quietly. "No one even looked up to notice it was here." For 2 hours, Sophia guided Julian through the building, revealing hidden architectural treasures his team had overlooked. Original brass mailboxes, hand-carved elevator doors, secret patterns in the terrazzo floors. Her knowledge was encyclopedic, her passion infectious. "Why this building?" Julian asked as they stood on the rooftop overlooking the East River. "You must have your pick of projects." Something shifted in her expression, a momentary vulnerability quickly masked. "Some buildings just matter more than others," she answered, turning away. Julian caught her arm gently. "There's something you're not telling me." Their eyes met, and for a moment Julian thought she might confide in him. Instead, she stepped back, rebuilding her professional distance. 6 months, Mr. Mercer. That's my timeline. Take it or find another architect." Julian studied her, certain now that Sofia Vega was hiding something about her connection to this building. And Julian Mercer had built an empire by uncovering what people tried to keep hidden. "Deal," he said finally. "But I want you to work directly with me on this. No intermediaries," alarm flashed in her eyes. "That's not necessary. Those are my terms, Ms. Vega. Take them or find another client." She clenched her jaw, clearly conflicted, before offering her hand. "Fine. But I warn you, Mr. Mercer, I don't compromise on my principles." As they shook hands, Julian felt an unmistakable current between them. Part tension, part something deeper he wasn't ready to name. "Neither do I, Ms. Vega," he replied. "This should be interesting." Hidden truths. 3 weeks into their collaboration, Julian found himself looking forward to his meetings with Sofia. They'd established a rhythm. Early mornings at the Riverview site, reviewing progress, debating design choices. Their disagreements were frequent but productive, each pushing the other toward better solutions. Today, Julian arrived to find Sofia in the building's east wing, directing restoration specialists on an ornate plaster ceiling medallion. "We need to preserve the acanthus leaf detail," she insisted to a contractor. "It matches medallions on the 3rd and 5th floors. They tell a story together." Julian leaned against the doorframe, watching her work. She wore jeans and a simple sweater, her hair tied back haphazardly, completely absorbed in her element. "You've memorized every inch of this place," he observed when the contractors departed. Sofia glanced over, a small smile playing at her lips. "Good morning to you, too." Their relationship had warmed considerably. The rigid formality of those first days had gradually given way to a cautious friendliness. And, Julian admitted to himself, a growing attraction he struggled to suppress. "I brought breakfast," he said, holding up a bag from her favorite bakery. He'd noticed her preference for their almond croissants during a previous meeting. Her eyes lit up. "Caffeine and carbs? Now you're speaking my language." They settled in what would eventually become a conference room, sitting cross-legged on the floor with coffee and pastries between them. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating dust particles dancing in the air. "The board approved your revised timeline," Julian said. "Another victory for the stubborn Ms. Vega," she smiled, looking genuinely pleased. "They won't regret it. This place will be magnificent when we're finished. A perfect balance of past and future." "You never answered my question from before," Julian said, studying her. "Why this building? What makes the Riverview so special to you personally?" Sofia's expression changed subtly, that same guarded look he'd noticed on the rooftop. She brushed crumbs from her fingers, buying time. "I told you, it's architecturally significant. There are dozens of architecturally significant buildings in New York. You fight for this one like it's personal." She met his eyes, seeming to debate with herself before speaking. "My grandmother used to tell me stories about this place. She worked here in the 1950s as a secretary when it was still Rivera Shipping headquarters." Julian frowned. "Rivera Shipping? The name was Riverview Maritime when we acquired it." "They changed it after the company was sold in the 1980s, Sofia explained, her voice carefully neutral. "Corporate rebranding." Something clicked in Julian's mind. Rivera. Vega. The resemblance to the portrait he'd seen in the building's historical documents. "Sofia," he said slowly, "was your family connected to the original owners of this building?" She stared at her coffee cup for a long moment before answering. "Antonio Rivera was my grandfather. He built this company from nothing after immigrating from Spain. The Riverview building was his legacy. Julian felt as though the floor had dropped from beneath him. Why didn't you tell me? Would it have mattered? Would you have hired me if you knew? I don't understand. If your family owned this building, why did they sell? Pain flashed across her face. They didn't sell willingly. After my grandfather died, the company faced financial troubles. My father tried to save it, but he was young, inexperienced. When the recession hit in the 80s, predatory investors circled. They forced a sale at a fraction of its worth. Julian's mind raced, connecting dots. His company had purchased the building from Westridge Holdings, a property investment firm known for aggressive acquisition tactics. And now Nexus owns your family's building, he said quietly. That's why you took this project. Not for the architecture, for your family. Sophia stood abruptly, moving to the window. For both. This building matters, its history, its design. But yes, I wanted to ensure it wasn't stripped of everything that made it special. She turned to face him. My father died still heartbroken about losing this place. I grew up hearing stories about the river view, the mosaic ceiling, the hidden details, the view from the president's office where my grandfather could see the ships coming into harbor. Julian joined her at the window, seeing the building through new eyes. You're not just preserving architecture. You're preserving your family's memory. Is that so wrong? She challenged. No, he admitted. But your objectivity is absolute, she interrupted firmly. I've never compromised my professional standards. Every recommendation I've made has been in the building's best interest. Julian believed her. In their weeks working together, Sophia had proven herself to be principled and honest. Still, the revelation changed things between them, complicated the unexpected feelings that had been developing. I need to know everything, Sophia. No more secrets if we're going to continue working together. She hesitated, then nodded. There's one more thing. In my grandfather's old office, room 512, there's supposed to be a wall safe behind the eastern bookcase. Family legend says he left something important there. No one's been able to access it since the building changed hands. Julian ran a hand through his hair, processing this new information. And you want to find it? Yes, she admitted. But I would never compromise the project for personal reasons. Their eyes met, an unspoken current passing between them. Julian realized with sudden clarity that he trusted her, more than he'd trusted anyone in years, and that terrified him. We'll look for it together, he decided. After hours, tonight. Relief and something like gratitude washed over her face. Thank you. As Julian watched her return to examining the ceiling medallion, he wondered what he was really preserving here, a building, a family legacy, or something more fragile that was growing between them. Shattered trust. The safe was exactly where Sophia had said it would be. After hours of carefully removing the built-in bookcase in room 512, they'd found it. A vintage Mosler wall safe with an ornate dial, the Rivera shipping logo etched into its face. Can you open it? Sophia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Julian examined the mechanism. We could call a locksmith. No, she interrupted. No outsiders, please. He understood her need to keep this moment private. Over the past 6 weeks, their professional relationship had evolved into something neither of them had anticipated. Late nights reviewing plans had led to dinner discussions that drifted far from architecture. Morning coffee had become a ritual both looked forward to. The attraction between them remained unspoken but undeniable. I know someone, Julian said, discreet. Former security consultant. He can be here in an hour. While they waited, they sat on the dusty floor of what had once been her grandfather's office, sharing a bottle of wine Julian had brought to celebrate a construction milestone. Tell me about him, Julian said. Your grandfather, Sophia smiled, her face softening in the dim light. Antonio Rivera. Larger than life. He came to America with nothing but determination. Built a shipping empire through sheer force of will. She traced patterns in the dust beside her. Everyone said he was the toughest negotiator in New York, but he'd give his last dollar to any employee in trouble. This building was his pride, every detail chosen personally. Like you, Julian observed. She looked up, surprised. What do you mean? Passionate, stubborn, unwilling to compromise on what matters. She laughed softly. I'll take that as a compliment. It was meant as one. Julian hesitated, then added, Your father. Is that why you became an architect? To reclaim some part of what he lost? Pain flickered across her face. Maybe at first. Dad never recovered from losing the company. He felt he'd failed his father's legacy. But architecture became my own passion. She gestured to the room around them. Creating spaces that last, that mean something. That's mine. Julian studied her in the half-light, struck by her quiet strength. I've never met anyone quite like you, Sofia Vega. Their eyes met, the air between them charged with unspoken feelings. For a moment, Julian thought they might finally acknowledge what had been building between them. Before either could speak, a knock at the door broke the spell. Julian's security expert made quick work of the safe. Within 15 minutes, the heavy door swung open with a creak of long unused hinges. "I'll wait outside," the man said, sensing the moment's importance. Inside the safe lay several items: stock certificates, legal documents, a small velvet jewelry box, and a sealed envelope with "For my children's children" written in elegant script. Sophia's hands trembled as she opened the envelope. Inside was a letter and a smaller envelope. She read silently, tears gathering in her eyes. "What does it say?" Julian asked softly. "It's his will, his real will." She looked up, emotions warring on her face. He knew the company was in trouble. "This letter says he arranged for certain assets to be held separately from the business, insurance for his descendants if the worst happened." She opened the smaller envelope, revealing a key and an address for a long-term storage facility in Manhattan. "The family legacy wasn't just this building," she whispered. "There's more." Julian felt a surge of happiness for her, followed immediately by an unexpected pang of loss. Her quest was ending. What reason would she have to remain on this project now that she'd found what she was looking for? "We should check the storage unit," he said, rising to his feet. "First thing tomorrow." Sophia nodded, carefully returning the items to her bag. As they prepared to leave, Julian received an urgent call from his legal department. "Mr. Mercer, we've uncovered something concerning about the Riverview acquisition," his counsel explained. The title search revealed irregularities in how Westridge Holdings obtained the property. "There are questions about the legality of the original forced sale from Rivera Shipping." Julian froze, looking at Sophia across the room. "What kind of irregularities?" "Potentially fraudulent. If these documents are authentic, the Rivera family might have grounds to challenge even our ownership. I've sent everything to your secure server." After ending the call, Julian opened his laptop, downloading the files with growing dread. The documents confirmed his worst fears. Evidence suggesting Westridge had manipulated financial records, pressured board members, even threatened Antonio Rivera's son to force the sale. "Julian?" Sophia approached, concern in her eyes. "What's wrong?" He closed the laptop, mind racing. If these documents became public, Nexus could face legal challenges, construction delays, negative publicity. The smart business move would be to bury this information, finish the renovation quickly, and establish clear occupancy before anyone could raise questions. But looking at Sophia, trusting, brilliant Sophia who'd shared her family's pain with him, Julian knew he couldn't hide this from her. "There's something you need to see," he said quietly, reopening the laptop. As Sophia read, her expression transformed from confusion to disbelief to anger. "They cheated him. They threatened my father." Her voice rose. "And Nexus bought the building knowing this?" "No," Julian said firmly. "I had no idea. These records were buried, but now you know," she cut in, stepping away from him. "What are you going to do about it, Julian?" The question hung between them, a test he hadn't anticipated. "Sophia, this is complicated. Legally, Nexus purchased this property in good faith from thieves." Her eyes flashed. "You can make this right. Return what was stolen. It's not that simple. There are shareholders, contracts." "It is that simple," she interrupted, disappointment etching across her face. "It's just not easy or profitable." Julian reached for her, but she stepped back. "Sophia, please. I thought you were different," she whispered. "I thought what was growing between us was real. But in the end, you're just another businessman protecting his interests." The accusation stung because part of him feared she was right. He'd built Nexus by making hard decisions, by putting business before sentiment. But something had changed in these weeks with Sophia. She'd reminded him what it meant to care about something. beyond profit margins. I need time to figure this out, he said. Take all the time you need. She gathered her things, hurt and betrayal evident in every movement. I won't be continuing with this project. I'll have my resignation letter on your desk tomorrow. Sophia, wait, but she was already gone, leaving Julian alone in a building filled with ghosts. Her grandfathers, her fathers, and now the ghost of what might have been between them. Rebuilding foundations. 3 months later, Julian stood in the completed lobby of the Riverview building, watching as workers installed the final piece of the restored mosaic ceiling. Sunlight streamed through newly cleaned windows, bringing the gold constellation tiles to life, just as Sophia had promised they would. He hadn't seen her since that night in her grandfather's office. True to her word, she'd resigned from the project the next day. Julian had tried to contact her, but she'd refused his calls. The only communication had been through her attorneys, professional, impersonal. It's magnificent, said Dominic, joining him. The board is thrilled. The Historical Preservation Society is calling it the most sensitive corporate renovation in decades. Julian nodded absently, his eyes fixed on the ceiling Sophia had fought so hard to preserve. Any word on the press conference tomorrow? Everything's arranged. All major networks confirmed. It's not every day a CEO gives away a $100 million building. The decision had come to Julian in the middle of the night, 2 weeks after Sophia had walked away. He'd been reviewing the fraudulent documents, searching for a legal loophole, when he realized he was asking the wrong question. Not what could he do, but what should he do? The next morning, he'd called an emergency board meeting and laid out his plan. Nexus would complete the Riverview renovation, but would then transfer ownership to a newly created trust. The Rivera Vega Foundation would own the building, with Nexus leasing 3 floors for its East Coast operations. The remaining space would provide below-market rent to arts organizations and architectural preservation groups. It had been the fight of his career. Several board members had threatened to sue. The compromise had cost him personally a significant portion of his own shares and a substantial cash contribution to secure the board's reluctant approval. Have you heard from her? Dominic asked carefully. Julian shook his head. Sophia had rejected the initial overture from his legal team, suspicious of corporate tricks. Only after her attorneys had vetted. Every document had she agreed to serve as the foundation's director, a position that would give her grandfather's legacy the protection it deserved. She's arriving at 2 to inspect the final details, Dominic said. First time back in the building since, well, you know, Julian checked his watch. I should go. I have meetings at Nexus headquarters all afternoon. Julian. Dominic rarely used his first name. Stay. Before Julian could respond, the massive front doors opened, and Sophia stepped into the lobby. She wore a simple blue dress, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked exactly as she had that first night at the museum, solitary, focused, beautiful. She stopped when she saw him, surprise registering on her face. Neither moved for a long moment. The ceiling looks perfect, Julian said finally, breaking the silence. Sophia's eyes moved upward, taking in the restored mosaic. Yes, she agreed softly. It does. Dominic discreetly retreated, leaving them alone beneath the glittering constellations. I should have told you my plans before the press got wind of them, Julian said. I wanted to, but your attorney said— I know, Sophia interrupted. I wasn't ready to hear it from you directly. And now? She met his gaze steadily. I'm still processing everything. What you're doing for the building, for my family's legacy, it's extraordinary. It's what's right, Julian said simply. Why? She asked, the question hanging between them. Your board was against it. It cost you personally. Why fight so hard? Julian took a step toward her. Because you made me remember something I'd forgotten. That some things matter more than business. That legacy isn't measured in stock prices. Sophia's expression softened slightly, but wariness remained in her eyes. And the foundation. Putting me in charge? The building belongs with someone who loves it, who understands its soul. He hesitated, then added, I'm not trying to buy forgiveness, Sophia. I'm trying to do what's right, for the building, for your family's legacy, and yes, for us if there's still any chance of that. Us, she repeated, testing the word. I'm not sure what that would look like now. Neither am I, Julian admitted. But I'd like to find out, if you're willing. He held out his hand, not demanding, just offering. For a terrifying moment, he thought she might turn away. Instead, she took a step forward. I found what was in the storage unit, she said. My grandfather's personal art collection. Pieces he'd acquired over decades, some quite valuable now. That's wonderful. I'm donating them to the foundation. They belong here, in the building he loved. She paused, then added, He left a letter with the collection. He wrote that buildings outlast us all, but it's the people inside them that give them meaning. She took another step closer. You hurt me, Julian. Making this right doesn't erase that. I know, but people can rebuild too, not just buildings. She took his outstretched hand. Maybe we can start again. Slowly. Relief and hope flooded through him as their fingers intertwined. Above them, light played across the constellations her grandfather had commissioned nearly a century ago. Stars that had witnessed the building's rise, fall, and resurrection. I'd like that, Julian said, his voice rough with emotion. Sophia smiled, tentative but real. So would I. They stood together in the restored lobby, two people from different worlds connected by an old building with a soul worth saving. Around them, sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating not just the space they had preserved together, but the possibility of what they might build next. The Riverview building had found its future by honoring its past. Perhaps they could do the same.